But welcome. This is the first of a 5-week series for Lent. With everything happening last weekend, with Elevation being here, guest preacher, one service, uh, we opted to start the series this week. And the series is based on this book by Barbara Bruce called Finding Jesus in the Psalms. And so our purpose today will be really twofold. One will be to introduce, for me to introduce some of the ideas that she's presenting, in this book, and then within there, touch on the first psalm that she has as well, coinciding with that. And so this, as you heard Eric say, they don't have a stash of these somewhere, but if you're interested in those, very easy to find online. And you're welcome to take a picture of that at the end, or what have you, if you want to get a copy of this. But a very accessible, as I've read through this, very accessible study for the Lenten season, as she provides both some historical, literary context, but then also some of her own context in terms of interpreting the Psalms as we work through the season. So that'll be up here for later if you want to take a look at that on your way out. Okay. He started my PowerPoint in the middle of the. There we go. That's where we should be starting. Is there? So when you think of the Psalms, what words come to mind? David.
Praise. Songs.
Songs.
Lord is my shepherd.
The Lord is my shepherd.
Poetry.
Poetry.
Adoration.
Adoration.
Lament.
Lament. Absolutely.
150.
150. Yes, Pastor. Thank you. Absolutely.
The numbers for you.
Other words that come to mind.
Kind of open it opens the Psalms.
It does actually. Like here's Psalm 1, so we're close. Good. Other words that come to mind when you hear the word Psalm.
Despair. When they're used.
Despair. What's that?
Like when they're used.
When they're used.
Milestones in people's lives.
Not bad for people's lives. Good. Other words. It's not like an exhaustive list here. It's more just helpful for me to know what we're associating. As we jump into this, Barbara Roos is the author of the resource that's being presented. And so she offers in her book 3 tools to center your thinking while reading the Psalms. So the first, move over here just a touch. So that's okay. The context. So detailing the big picture of the scripture from who's writing it. You mentioned David, and it's about 73, 75 of Psalms, so almost half of that body of work to David came out of the Jews. So we're talking about who was written, and all the way through the audience. What's the study? What's the message being communicated in the moment? That's kind of it. So that is the context of the thing that we're reading. Number 2 is about connection. How do we understand and apply, how scripture will confirm itself, whether it's through some type of relationship, through some type of symbol, or something that cases to scripture. And then when you focus as Christians, you can back and read the Psalms where Jesus answers on as to again, Old Testament work, but then a lot of that language comes forward into the New Testament, and as well as teaching. So how does this back at that passage and either how it made a meaning to Jesus, or how it might impact that perspective, like how do we interpret that today? So what is the point of Jesus in the time? It's quite a long time to try to figure out God reveals himself to creation, or Psalm 19, the heavens are telling, heaven of the Lord, love, John 3:16, provided his only son, the word. We truly understand God when we are in King. And so also remember, questions. Really, God, a lot of bad things happen. God is there for something to do. And love your after all the way to the end. And so, today, I want to do the following things to do. Some of the emotions that are there, so that we can actually have a voice to speak. And to have some of these questions as we're going through them. Some of you talked to water songs, we heard it said already, poetry, there's songs, or memorial in the worship in the temple. Like a prayer. You know, we have the most call, you know, so like the prayers that happen. We can talk about the emotional expressions of love or anguish. You know, that's good. So you have those experiences together. And then after that, you have to be written by kings like the prophets. You can't pray it all again. And then you know, where that's in the Philippines, the word from leaders and nothing. It's starting to come up and having just you know, Solomon has written some. Some of the this is the Moses. So the numerous contributors to this body of literature. A great quote that Barbara Ruth put somewhere that I love is the book of Psalms hums with the heartbeat of our humanity with divinely inspired words that find purchase in the tenderest places in our hearts when our human words or wisdom fails us. Let me give that to you one more time. The book of Psalms hums with the heartbeat of our humanity with divinely inspired words that find purchase in the tenderest places in our hearts when our human words or wisdom fail us. I really like that. There is part of in some of the previous classes I've talked, I'm always carrying my hymnal with my Bible, you know, and so as an artist, I often look to other artists to say, what are they writing? How are they thinking about something? And how does that inform my own experience? And I think that's really the power of the thing. You know, sometimes we don't necessarily have the words, or we can't necessarily contextualize something. You know, it's a great place to go to find for that. So let's look at some examples. We have one called something we've looked at already. There's another famous psalm passages that jump to mind. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Psalm 121. I looked up my own. Yep. Look, it's a Diane. Okay. Praise the Lord unto the Lord. I think 98. I'm looking at the actual sport there. Yeah, I think. What are some other ones?
Oh God, my God. No, that's trying to think Psalm 8.
Psalm 8?
Lord.
Well, I have it right here.
Oh, something's gone out of my mind.
Sure, one page.
How excellent is thy name in all the earth.
That's right. How majestic is your name in all the earth. Yeah, that's another one.
Psalms 3, Lord will thou protect me.
Yeah, Psalm 3, excellent.
51, confession.
Putting me clean the heart of God, Psalm 51.
I'm not sure which psalm it is, but it's created me a clean heart.
Psalm 51. Yeah. Other passages that come to mind?
Praise the Lord with gladness.
Yeah, praise the Lord with gladness. Yeah, Psalm 100 doesn't say something that's more on the earth. Go to Psalm 90. This is one of my favorites. Lord, you've been our dwelling place in all generations. The mountains were brought forth, and you never formed the earth and the world. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. Some great musical songs that come out. Psalm 46, which is my fortress and fortified, and know that I am God. So, all types of relationship with God. With prayer, with praise, with prayer, with relief, so a great Lenten practice to go into these. Um, for this point, is what type of king was David?
Flawed.
Flawed. We know his failings with Bathsheba. Warrior. Warrior. He was a warrior king.
Think of him as young. Not sure if that's accurate.
Complex.
I come to complex. Yeah, I wanted to try to describe an age to when he was anointed into becoming king. King Saul, who was his predecessor, was aware of his coming, that Saul's time as king was ending, which put him into pretty mental distress. And that's when David's anointed to take up the mantle. Yeah, I think the primary thing is to think about David as the warrior king, because it gives you context of what he's writing about. And so David ascends to the throne, and through war ultimately establishes Jerusalem as the holy city for the people of Israel. So the palace then is built for that, and yet in his own heart he desires to build a temple for God, to hold the Ark of the Covenant, and then to take that to war with them, the earthly representation of God's presence. And ultimately, God says, building a temple for me is not going to be your job. And we know that Solomon, who was next in line, ultimately is the one who built the temple. But in this, God makes this covenant with David, which we read in 2 Samuel 7. Your house and your kingdom will continue before me for all time, and your throne will be secure forever. Now, we later will see that covenant manifest. Remember the opening of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew? Oftentimes in the Revised Common Lectionary, we skip the first part of Matthew because it's skipping genealogy. It's basically laying out, tying back to this covenant that God has made with David. It starts with an accounting of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. And so then it goes through the listings of all the names, and then ultimately culminates with, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And then from David to the deportation to Babylon, 14 generations. And from the deportation from Babylon to the Messiah, 14 generations. So there's this whole genealogy that's there. We're ultimately connecting this covenant forward. So it's not like a 4 years backwards looking at relationship that develops, in these writings. And as we kind of talked about loosely, but to sort of more formally is the recent language, sort of like God to fill and then you can offer thanksgiving to God for the blessings given to you. in this case, unconditional love and salvation, to put a period on that. That's the greatest touchdown, the path to hope, peace, and redemption through our greatest pain. So yeah, as I was just saying a moment ago with that forward backward relationship, if you jump into the Gospel of John, very famous. How does that begin? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through Him, and without Him, not one thing came into being. What has come into Him was life, and the life was the light of all people. So in both this both this dramatic and unassuming place, the hope of Christ, is very forward from either desperation or depravity of humanity. Psalm 2, in light of current events and with war starting, the Psalm is really well. So I think I'm going to read this together. And I heard this was twice. Yeah, I don't know what to speak for it, but I don't know how far back you can Now, this is paired, generally you'll see when you study Psalms that usually there are multiples that are paired together. So this is typically paired with Psalm 1, with this kind of back to summarize, where Psalm 1 starts, happy are those who do not follow the advice of the wicked or take the path that sinners tread, or sit in the seat of scoffers, but their delight is in the law of the Lord. Happy are those. And then return back to that notion, happy are all who take refuge. So often as you get into Psalms, you'll see a sequence of 2, 3, or 4 that come together in this. Here's the voice. Who's the voice of the writer?
God through David.
Yeah, so King David's the author of this one. Yep, and he was found. So you have a feeling he's actually writing this. So that puts some things into context for that. You'll see the different times when the states will come into play. So that's at the start of when. Okay, it's going to be found in this one. So I think in this context, Psalm 2 is making kind of sense and clear where in the face of the view of the terrifying threats, God is going to create and preserve order through the anointed one. Now, in this case, we're talking about, you have to remember in the king's context, we said earlier, you're anointed when you become king. Okay, so also a prophet would come and say, here is the king, would anoint with oil, which then sets you apart from the people. That sets you into a different relationship way, in connection to God. If we're saying, all right, God, authority, here's earthly authority for this particular tribe of people. And so, I think the thing we're thinking about Jerusalem and David as king was they were kind of a small game in town. If you compare them to, I said earlier, we had the exile to Babylon. If you compare to Egypt, Mesopotamia, there are other larger, greater things that were out there. But for this community, this is where they're looking to their earthly king. So how's this anointed one? Later on, the anointed one becomes Jesus. Okay, so we have again that connection from David to Messiah to Jesus that gets established. But in this particular, you're really going to hear three voices. You hear the voice of God. You're going to hear the voice of the ruler on earth, and then the voice of God's anointed king, who will actually quote God and speaks directly to all the other rulers on earth. So we kind of have a complicated interplay that's happening here. So let me just say that again because that was a lot of to put on at you. You're containing at least three voices in this particular psalm. Right? You have the voice of God, the voice of the rulers of the earth, the voice of God's anointed king, and then the anointed king in turn will quote God and then speak directly to all the other rulers of the earth. You get all that? That's a lot of who's on first. Okay? And so what we're seeing here in the first section of the verse numbers, verses 1 to 3, I think it's starting here, verse 12 to watch. Okay, so what we're seeing here is a world in which inviting the state is establishing some type of order to a divinely established king, but simultaneously concurrently the world is in uproar. And they're rebelling in their own ways. This figure form to get to everyone is being through sense? You with me so far? We'll find out. Now, the problem here is, the rebellion that's happening is not simply against God, but it's also against God's anointed one. Okay, so I'm saying against all people. With the rulers, alright, the other leaders, not the Jewish king, but other, tribes and regions. And it's also against both God, and then also we'll say the voice of King David. Okay? And that makes that problem again, as we talked about, the guys of people, as well as the photography, or the animation, so we can see the different level of status, as opposed to perhaps thinking about or whatever is driving the external forces.
So the anointed in line 5 is David?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's not like the king, it's one of the king. Yeah. Listening so far, still? Okay, let's hear part of this first. Right. So the other part of this is who is the younger or the rest of that? Directed specifically at the anointed one, the king, as opposed to God, but by translation, it's an up-down relationship. So we'll see this coming in. But then the response, here in the 4 to 6, he doesn't sit in the heaven, he's God, he sits in the heaven. Which is laughs. I mean, it's quite a response to, raging emotions.
Correct.
Yeah. It's almost, it almost kind of harkens us back to like Garden of Eden. God kind of expects this from us. I had an ethics professor once who used to always say to me, he's like, being good is so hard, but being bad is so much more fun. It kind of embodies the human condition, where it's hard, to like the ultimate addiction to this thing. It's hard to say, how do I reduce my goals, desires, whether how right or wrong they may be, it's true of the to the greater good. What a great phrase. And so here's the response. Two things where God reaffirms at this point the divine order that has been set up of God anointing the King David. So God is affirming the order that God has created. So then we move into here. And then we will stop at the top of page 4. This voice of the law spoken the part that makes this film so tricky to navigate is like who's speaking. God, this person is the we can look down and say me, and that make sense?
Who is the them? We should break them. Last line.
Yes.
I was gonna say, it's like the call is the anointed one. When a pastor feels he has a call, he's like being anointed, so he would be the anointed one, which is what God did, he called David, so that's the anointed. And then, so it all makes sense, because God told him, look, you're my son. You're my anointed one, and you know, God's laughing because all these people fight amongst, it's like we're watching little kids fight amongst themselves. I'm gonna handle it.
Well, it's similar in the old notion of elders and deacons. We're anointed and we bring those people forward to one big vows, but then we call previous elders and deacons to come forward and lay hands on them. You know, it's another form of anointing. You know? That's all it's clear. Yeah, and
Pancakes.
Another reflection on that before I slide ahead to the last one.
Oh, the other,
Yeah.
the other thing I've learned in other studies is that fear, serve the Lord with fear. Fear, it doesn't mean scared to death, it means in awe.
Yeah.
So serve the Lord with awe because he's so powerful.
Sure.
Trembling is his feet. And that makes so much sense to me. And I really love that I learned that because I did not understand it before.
You won't care.
You should.
Yeah, I think in today's day, being up front here as a grandchild, just over 1 year old, and once in a while I get to see Jersey. And it's fun to watch a baby discovering a world anew. Because someone who's spent 40+ years already kind of navigating through it, this happens. Where all of a sudden it's like, all right, I'm in my tunnel vision. And to watch a child who just gets excited over the goofiest of things, you're kind of like, yeah. No, I think it's an important perspective in all of that. I think that's where all wonder, it's something you don't constantly have to keep renewing.
We were talking about watching them, but also to have a conversation with them. It's not linear. It's like whatever's in their brain, whatever they want to say, and they jump subjects and sometimes it's hard to follow them, but it's just wonderful to see, from their perspective what they're talking about, what they're concentrating on.
I've been relearning child ease this year as we've shifted the schedule of the children's choir program, and Kirsten, designs and runs all that. But then I get to come in and I get to work with the cherubs. And so they're not quite at the point yet of reading because I got the 4 and 5-year-olds. So sometimes they'll come in and want to tell me something that's really important. And I'm like, I'm gonna have to listen really closely to decipher the words that are coming, And it's been great for me to reconnect with that. Because I've run prayer choirs in previous congregations. But it's been 15 years since I've done that. So to kind of look again at the wonder of I have one boy, Merritt, who always has something new to tell me each week. Or it's a new, here's my new object, of the week, like, and then there's always a story behind the object, and usually it's name and all that, but anyway, I digress as I go on, and all in wondering, and I think that, again, you know, Jesus holds up the children as models, you know, later on, you know, learn from them, develop their eyes, you know, because I think, again, as I said earlier, it's easy for me to think that I got it all figured out, and I put these kind of lenses on, and I think it's a great thing about being a so, we really see that in the first, long versus home. Foundation and everything. The Sunday, peace, speaking, and then, the content. Pretty bad questions. We're going through all that.
I'm fascinated by the violent breaking. I mean, that doesn't do us much good. But you know, the whole idea that he's going to, and I get the warrior king thing, but still, it's such a contrast with Jesus not being violent and not being the warrior and all, but so I'm just,
Well, I will tell you this. It is completely conventional for an ancient Near Eastern king to describe his military prowess in expansive, even wildly hyperbolic terms.
cool.
Yeah, because again, if David is the author,
Right.
you know, of this, I think some contention about his role. And he was one that wasn't just, you know, always spending that farming, he also was out in it as well. So, you know, again, as the warrior king, he has experienced war directly. You know, it also doesn't realize the, you know, spending all these hours in the palace, but it's a both and. But yeah, in some of the commentaries I was reading, it's relatively common to
Full exaggeration.
a little bit, yes. Because yeah, as I said earlier, remember, Jerusalem's a small fish in all this. You know, when you think about regionally, the other larger kingdoms that are in town, you know, they kind of have a, you know, very good license to navigate that. You know, because through that story, you know, they continue to go through periods of exile where they, Jerusalem gets overthrown, the temple gets destroyed. I mean, you know, we have all that that comes later. That's all part of it. Good. Let's come down to Hillsdale. We come down here for this foundation. What do we feel we're reading here?
God.
God in there, we hear David.
David talking to the other rulers.
So admonishment perhaps.
We have it. Last 2 lines, he will be angry in his wrath. So I would say David is saying, speak God.
I have a question. As far as context, you're talking about that. So they're the small fish, and David has this message to the other rulers in the region. How did that go over?
Yeah, I think in this case again, we're talking about, and again, you know, with our Calvinist roots as Presbyterians, we believe a lot of things early on in our worship, but we just say the Psalms are good. You know, it's there are two different resources you would find in this building. Obviously, the hymnal in your pew is one. The other, which is in the chapel, Psalms for All Seasons. While this is pretty much the same size as a hymnal, everything in here are different psalm settings. So what's kind of neat about this particular resource is on a particular psalm, there might be 5 to 10 different types of musical settings, as well as translations of text that exist. So if you ever find yourself ruminating and you don't know what to pick up in the library, wander down to the chapel. These are right on the shelves there as you go in. And you could certainly pull out. And in here, you know, you have the Library of the Nations read, so we have a hidden texts on that. We're going to pray for you. Yeah, I found this one fascinating. Why this dark conspiracy? Nations plotting to be free. Foolishly, they ridicule God's most wise and righteous rule. You know, and yet, you know, it comes around at the end. All conspiracies are vain. God's Messiah comes to reign. Princes, peoples, he that fall, honor Christ as Lord of all. So that's also a hidden study that's contained in here. So a lot of different ways to come out here. So for my own hymnal, 758, there's been both in the previous blue book, the Presbyterian hymnal in 1988, and then this is Glory to God, but I got a fancy cover because I needed to work the hymnal events at Wayne. And then it came out. And they didn't use this part of this last kind of this is the purple book, you know, the Peter. And 758, in there, Michael Morgan writes this particular translation. Which, again, part of what he's doing is trying to fit, you know, a text into a metrical tune. So that also forces choice of language. Couple this, which you'll see in a moment. There's two verses of this. And so in the second one, you'll see how does he bring this forward into Christ. But you know, to land and the nations roots together, fire burn with his fire. Rule the earth vast dominion, let the skies get holy fire. This is interesting. Truth is speaking, God is persistent, praise and righteousness of God. Let fellow rule his pleasure, store the seeds before God's eyes. And part two of that, from the spirit of the past and good display this day. For the sacred fields of iron, and for bashful souls as clay. I mean, vessels, the pottery. Things about when you go back to those words. Both revealing, unrevealing, cut the fire, and sheath the sword. God's wrath is considered, but I put her name but blessed are they who serve the Lord. So it's interesting juxtaposition. Those are the things you said that you think about poetry. And then for the second stanza.
Children of the promise.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's up for debate and everybody can claim that they are.
Yeah.
That first verse, like, first one. Yeah, the first verse of it. Here.
Yes.
Might be the most articulate word message I've ever seen. Really clear and clear. At this time, was there like an oppression of the Jewish people as far as when you're looking at truth mistaken, God forsaken, that part?
The translation that conveys the text is the information of the time, I think when they did the translation. Yeah, okay, 1950.
So 30 years ago, as far as conflict in the world, what was happening at that time?
I remember thinking that much like the thing, probably right, for one, where this would go. You know, because I was in high school in the 90s.
So this is really good as far as relating it to that.
I would say children of promise, children of Abraham, with whom the covenant was made. And the children of Abraham. Come down to us.
Sorry.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
You said he translated this? From what did he translate it?
So usually that's a more complicated question. So usually, you're going back and we someone has to go back and look at original text. Because again, you know, I have a translation here.
Yeah.
And then I can go find about 5 dozen different English translations.
And so originally
Some
it would
were,
be what, Aramaic?
no, Hebrew.
Oh.
So you go back and read the Hebrew for this. And say, okay, what, because again, part of that is the etymology of, part of the seminary training, which I'm an armchair theologian. I did not go to seminary. But in talking to my, colleagues who have done that work or watched them go through that work, and part of their work is to go back and study Hebrew and Greek, to understand, all right, what were the original intent of these words, because often, depending on what translations you end up in,
Right.
That can be moved to different lenses. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just, what lens am I looking at this text? So you go back more to the original text and then say, okay, how do I get them? In this case, it has to strengthen
there are translations and there are interpretations.
Yes.
This is probably an interpretation of the text. Translations are more word for word
Right. Right. Because it has to be interpreted to fit
in order to.
fit musically what they're trying to do.
Correct.
Yes, it would not be if you went and did like for those who are in the choir, like some of the scores that we get, like the Brahms Requiem score, there was an attempt there to kind of be word for word to the German to the English. So you're capturing, the aesthetic that Brahms was trying to create at the different points. But in this case, if you go word for word, with the original, and it still have it fit in the structure of a thing too. Sorry. Yes.
I don't mean to justify why I think of David as young, but I go back to my Sunday school years when we sang Only a Boy Named David, Only a Little Sling, Only a Boy Named David, but he friends, and it goes on. I remember that from pre-primary Sunday school, I guess. It's never forgotten that. So I think of him as young, but I'm sure he got older. It's kind of fun. I'll do.
I'm avoiding it as much as I can, but it's not working. But no, I can think back to my grandmother when I was an early reader. Gave me a picture Bible. Now there are pros and cons to that. As a child, it helps me, understand these stories because it puts the images forward. I don't have, I'm not at a point where I have to make that. But also, it does also fix whatever the bias was of, whoever made that. And I don't have that because I think we passed it on to one of my cousins. I moved up to my confirmation Bible. I think that was the NIV. It was the confirmation Bible. But I think it's easy to get conceptions formed and like
Stick with them.
and stick with them. Good.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
As far as, quench the fire and sheet the sword, for God's wrath is quickly kindled. So,
Tempers down, but I'm using tempers arbitrarily. That's more me talking metaphorically. Sheath the sword, obviously, peace. Knowing that, going down that path, we're suggesting we would quickly bring wrath from God. It's a very Old Testament reading.
looking at God's wrath is quickly, and sometimes in our own humanness, not something that we cannot obtain or attain. So, as far as the wars that we have, as far as the wrath of people, is not that way, does not cool down like. It's so quickly.
The vastness of the universe. There's such a small thing in there. Part of what I think about is more, and I think, as the clergy were talking about, more what can we do in our own circle of influence? Recognizing that there's plenty of creator things in motion that we have no control over. That's kind of the perilous roller coaster of life.
So I think that's saying, knock it off where you will pay. And understand what you're really supposed to do.
Just summation point on that, and then we'll ahead. In this one commentator writes, we can feel the Psalm's fundamental tension as to whether the world is actually under God's ultimate control, referencing verses 1 to 3, or whether God's order has yet to be realized fully. This is hear God's clear response to the chaos and strife that fill the earth. God's word to the world comes through one man, the anointed king, God's son. Blessed are all of those who take refuge in him. In Barbara Rose's book, she has this, she looked up this quote. Making a mistake, definitely one year. But it's a reminder that as people, I said this earlier, that if we're really trying to figure it out, you know, we're not going to be surprised that we're not going to see history, repeating itself. I think there's something to be said about, while we focus on advancement, we often neglect spiritual matters or existential matters. And so I think calling us back into working on our inner stuff as well, not just what can I develop with AI. One of the quotes that she listed off that I liked is, we've got this DNA, deep dogged determination to live without relying upon God. So let's see one more time. We've got this DNA, this deep dogged determination to live without relying upon God. So again, we're as Americans very individualistic. Stand up and find your path, find your own course. But we're looking into the connection back as well. But what I do is in life, there's a child who, could be specific moments, when you go through it, when you go wrong, maybe if you mistake, or in that. Look back, but don't stare. I mean, let's do it acknowledge it, but don't make it more. So my introduction to this particular resource, we're going up here. readily available online if that's something you want to, acquire to walk with you during this Lenten season. But I really thank you for taking the time and your attention to be here. So thank you very much.